I'm Cass and welcome to my mid-year freakout tag. I am so bloody excited about filming this tag because if you know anything about how my reading went down last year, you know it was kind of rough. And kind of is an understatement. It was so rough, you guys. And therefore, I am ecstatic that I can report that my reading has been significantly better than last year. And coincidentally, that is actually the first question of this tag. How has your reading year been so far? Like I said, so much better than last year. I feel like I'm just reaching for books more often than not. Last year, I was so busy running my art business that I was drawing more times than I was reading. And this year, there's been a lot better balance. However, I definitely find myself reaching for books way more often, which is so exciting. I've also been on a big manga journey this year. I've tried out a bunch of new mangas and actually made some progress into series that I do want to continue, series like One Piece, Yona the Dawn, and Frieren. But I've also, I think, tried out Delicious in Dungeon, Witch Hat Atelier, and oh, Gachi Akata is another one that I'm really enjoying going through. They've been really handy when I want to read, but I just don't know if I have enough brain power for like a full-length novel. So sitting down and reading a volume of manga has been really helpful. Same when I get in a little bit of a slump. Reaching for a manga is a lot less intimidating than reaching for a book when I'm not really sure if I'm in the mood to read. I would love to continue and actually finish some of the mangas that I started. Like I mentioned, I'm working through One Piece. I don't think I'm gonna finish that this year. There's like over 100 volumes. There's no way. However, Yona of the Dawn, I'm about halfway through at this point, and then Gachi Akata, I think there's only like 12 to 13 volumes out, so I would love to get caught up in that series as well. And yeah, like I said, guys, it's just been so much better in terms of my reading this year, which makes me so happy, and I think that's kind of reflected in the fact that I'm back here on YouTube and consistently popping out some videos for you guys. The next question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2026? And for that, I kind of am copping out because there's 4. We'll talk through them all, but these are actually the only books I've given 5 stars to. And we actually have to start with what is probably, I think I would have to, would I crown this one my favorite? I think I may have to crown this one like my absolute favorite. So like the answer to the actual question, and then I'll go through my other 5 stars. And that is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. And I know so many of y'all are laughing at me because for years, you guys have been begging me to pick up this book, telling me that I was going to love it and adore it and it'll become a new favorite. And you guys were right, okay? You've renewed my trust in you all. Not that I ever lost the trust in you guys. I just sometimes procrastinate. Many years. However, this book really did come to me at the right time, I think, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know Anne and getting to know Avonlea as well. It's such a quaint town, and I love all the characters. I adore Anne so much. I love seeing her growth and her grow up and go through her phases of life, and I cannot wait until the fall when I can finally read Anne of the Island. I don't have to wait until the fall, but the cover does scream fall, which I'll actually talk about that book later because it actually matches the prompt for one of the questions later on. But Anne of Green Gables is definitely the best book I've read so far, and one that I definitely see myself returning to. There's just so many little tidbits and life lessons that I think that people can take away from this. So if you were like me and have been procrastinating picking up Anne of Green Gables, I highly recommend you go ahead and finally take the time to pick it up because, like I said, favorite book of the year so far. Briefly talking through the other 3 books that I had 5-starred, Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb being one of them. Honestly, it had me at talking boats, and had I known that there were talking boats in this earlier, I probably would have given Robin Hobb her second chance much sooner. I loved the Live Ship Trader series. Maybe I didn't love the last book, but the first 2 certainly were a fantastic time, and I loved the characters in this series so much. So many of their character arcs throughout the first 2 books, because I just ignore the fact that the 3rd book happened, but so many of their character arcs were so satisfying, and I loved getting to see their journey through their hardships and the trials and tribulations that the world threw at them or other characters threw upon them as well. And I'm a sucker for some boats and pirates, and this really had everything that I wanted and more. It had the politics, it had the pirates, it had people on boats. I am a simple gal, okay? So Ship of Magic was another 5-star, as well as Daisy Jones and the Six, which actually was my very first 5-star read of the year. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's books so much, and for some reason, okay, there was a reason why I was procrastinating picking up Daisy Jones, and that mostly had to do with the fact that everyone told me I had to listen to the audiobook, and then I never got around to borrowing the audiobook around the time that I was in the mood to pick up the book, if that makes sense. Because there's always a very long hold to get it available on Libby, so the timing never really aligned. However, I decided randomly at the beginning of the year to start watching the TV show, and I made it about 3 or 4 episodes into the TV show before I knew I wanted to read the book first, just to see the comparison and the difference between the two, because I absolutely ate up the TV show, you guys. Confession time though, I have 1 episode left, and it's been, you know, 6 months since watching it, and I still haven't got around to finishing the last episode. So maybe I should get on that soon, but it's fine, you guys, it's fine. I love getting to know Daisy and all of the characters, and yes, the audiobook was really good. However, watching the TV show first kind of did me wrong, just because I had their voices of the characters on the TV show so tied to their characters that the audiobook narrators, I was like, this is not what Daisy sounds like. I ended up only listening to the audiobook for the last, I would say, third or so of the book. It still is an experience I recommend, but I also enjoyed reading it physically as well. I remember ordering it, and when I saw it was out for delivery, I was literally checking my porch every like hour. I was so excited to sit down and pick it up. And then the last book I ended up giving 5 stars so far this year. You know, there's still the second half of the year to go, and hopefully I'll have more 5-star reads. But it was A Grave Robbery by Deanna Raybourn. This was book 9 in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. It's a historical mystery romance, and I ate this book up, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to. We are following Veronica and Stoker, who have really become one of my like top favorite fictional couples, if we're being so honest. I love their banter so much. And in this one, they have basically been tasked to turn this wax figure into like a clockwork figure where it like looks like it's breathing. However, when they go to cut open this wax figure, turns out there's actually a dead woman inside, and it's them seeking justice for this woman and discovering who it is and kind of what happened and who is at fault here and all of that. So big mystery. The mystery was fun, but Veronica and Stoker, I loved their banter so much in this book. There were so many just amazing moments, and my enjoyment of the Veronica Speedwell series has really been like up and down. There's books that I like absolutely adore, and then there's books where I was like, I'm so bored. Where's the charm? Where is the whimsy? Where is their banter? And this book delivered it, and it was a 5-star read, which is so exciting because I think I only have 2 other Veronica Speedwell books that were like absolute 5 stars for me. I'm now actually caught up in the Veronica Speedwell series. I read A Ghastly Catastrophe recently, and I'm so excited to finally experience the joy of like a new Veronica Speedwell book when it comes out, for I can like be in the moment, be in the hype with everybody else. The best sequel that I've read so far this year, like I just had said, A Grave Robbery is definitely up there, as well as This Inevitable Ruin, which is book 7 of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinneman. I love the Dungeon Crawler Carl series so much. I love listening to the audiobook, listening to Jeff Hayes, and listening to all of his character voices, and I just love hanging out with Carl and Donut in the dungeon. And This Inevitable Ruin has been something that has been talked about literally since book 1, when a certain decision was made in book 1 that led to consequences in book 7. And I love a good tie-in. It was like a big battle, and we had so many moving parts, and it was just so exciting and fast-paced. And I really loved my time, and for the most part, I loved the conclusion of the story, and I just know there's so many consequences from that that's going to continue forward into the rest of the series. And it's just been, like I said, a very fun series. And another sequel, or like multiple books, I guess you could say, is 14, 15, 16 of Yona of the Dawn. These peak Yona so far. Obviously, I'm only halfway through the Yona series. There's like 40 plus volumes. But these guys, these 14, 15, and 16 were so good. There were so many moments between characters that were so tense. I literally was like screaming at these books while I was reading them. I was throwing them down. I was just so hyped and so excited, and I just wanted to talk about them to somebody. So this contains my favorite arc, and I think these have been my favorite Yona volumes so far throughout the entire series. The next question is a book that you had the most fun reading, and this book, like, it fits, but maybe it doesn't really make sense. A Clash of Kings, which, if you know anything about a Game of Thrones, like, so much goes down. People die. People are getting traumatized. Like, so many things happen that I wouldn't describe this book as fun. However, I could not put this book down. I read this thing in 3 days on one of my work trips. I was getting made fun of by all of my crew because every time they looked at me, I was just sitting in the back reading. I could not put this book down, and I had so much fun diving into this world after watching season 1 of Game of Thrones. Like, obviously I read the first book. However, I had a lot of trouble parsing out who was who belonged to which family, and there's so many families and alliances and characters, and it was really hard to keep track of. Watching the TV show has made my enjoyment of reading Game of Thrones just skyrocket, because now I have names and faces, and it was so much easier to parse out who was who diving into this book, and it was a really nice recap as well, because there were certain details that I forgot about in book 1 that were able to be recapped in season 1, and then I could move on to reading book 2. Unfortunately, I have heard after, I think, season 3 of Game of Thrones, things really split off from following the books, which kind of sucks because I really enjoyed the recap before diving in. But if they start changing things and taking things out and moving things about, then that's going to be less of a recap and more of just a comparison, I guess, between the books. However, could not put this down. Definitely a highlight so far of my reading year, with book that I could not put down and I did not want to put down. And every time I had to get up to actually do my job, I was so annoyed because all I wanted to do was read this book and not put it down. A new release that I have yet to get to is a little bit of a cop-out just because I have kind of been on top of all the new releases that I've wanted to read. Granted, I have not finished Parade of Horribles, so I guess that could also tie into this. I'm still listening to the audiobook. However, I chose Freyrin Volume 14, which I believe came out in February or March, and for some reason I have not read it. I think it's just because I've been binging Yona so much, and I really hate being caught up to series that are incomplete. Like, I love it, but I hate it, you know, because then you have to wait for the next book to come out. And I've just been slowly wanting to savor the moments of Freyrin because it's my favorite manga. Although, Yona of the Dawn is definitely up there, you guys. I didn't think that I would find another manga so soon that would be tied with Freyrin, but here we are. So I definitely need to pick up volume 14, especially because we have characters that we met earlier on making a reappearance, as you can kind of see from the cover. So very exciting. I love Freyrin so much, and I'll definitely be getting to this sooner rather than later. I actually have a couple of anticipated releases for the second half of the year. The absolute top one being Well Versed by Jen DeLuca. This is the 5th and final book in the Renaissance romance series that I adore so much. Guys, I read this series 3 years ago, I think at this point, and I have since read it 6 or 7 times, which is a little insane. If I miss the Ren Fair, I'm picking up a Well Met book. If I go to the Ren Fair, I'm picking up a Well Met book. If I think about the Well Met series, I'm picking up a Well Met book. Like, I cannot be stopped, quite frankly, and I am very nervous but very excited about Well Versed because it's a second chance romance. And those sometimes are very, very missed for me, but Jen DeLuca has only done me wrong once, and that was with Well Played. I didn't really love that book, but I still enjoy rereading it, so I don't know what that says about me. And I love the cover, you guys. The pink, and I really, really hope that they come out with a special edition for it matches the rest of my collection. And then the other book that I'm really, really anticipating is The Last King of Fairy, which is Cassie Clare's final installment in the Shadowhunter universe, allegedly, you guys. I think she said she was gonna stop writing Shadowhunter books ages ago, yet she still keeps cranking them out. I'm such a sucker for the Shadowhunter universe, you guys. I truly keep thinking I'm out of it, but the urge to reread them is a little too strong for my liking, and it is just a series that I've had nostalgia for since middle school, and I cannot believe that all these years later, we're finally going to be done with the series. Allegedly. I don't know if I believe Cassie Clare, I'm gonna be so honest. However, I know Jace and Clary make a reappearance in this one, and that's honestly all I care about, okay? Especially because how the Dark Artifices series ended. I'm such a sucker for this, guys. I cannot wait to see what goes down, and I am just so excited to be part of like the Shadowhunter hype again, because I remember when Chains of Gold came out and just being so excited about that, and then Chain of Iron and Chain of Thorn, and I'm just ready for that Shadowhunter energy to be back, because there's so many people like me who have been reading it for years and years, and I just know we're gonna be so hyped. And the cover, is so pretty as well, which, you know, bonus points for that. The worst book that I read so far in 2026 has to be Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. I felt like this was a poorly done ripoff of his own Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I just feel like it lacked all the things, though, that made DCC so charming and unique, which was the characters. And the world was fine, you know, I just feel like it didn't get fleshed out enough. And characters were dying and stakes were high and they were defending their homeland. But I just didn't care because I didn't have that connection that I had with like Carl and Donut. And I didn't go in expecting to be on that same level, yet it really felt like a book that was just kind of written to be written. For Matt Dinniman had something outside of Dungeon Crawler Carl to promote in between the installments, if that makes sense. I actually was kind of shocked at how many good reviews of Operation Bounce House there were, but this one definitely missed the mark for me, which really sucked because it was one of my highly anticipated releases for the year because I was so keen to see what Matt Dinniman could do outside the DCC universe. However, I think we'll just stick to DCC at the moment. I unfortunately have multiple answers for the next question, which is biggest disappointments. I briefly spoke about this one earlier, but Ship of Destiny did me so dirty, you guys. Did me so dirty. I hated this book. I finished it and I was like, okay, Robin Hobb, this is what we're doing here. All of the buildup from the first two books just fell to the wayside. All the character development just took such a turn for the worse. We had characters that you really wanted them to get their comeuppance and wanted a satisfying ending, and then it was like the least satisfying ending ever. My least favorite character from the beginning of the series, Malta, ended up being my favorite. The favorite POV for me to experience was Malta. What happened to Althea? My girly. We ruined her character in this book and changed her motivations and just did not give her a satisfying conclusion whatsoever. I just like to not think about this book when I think about the Live Ship Trader series. I just think about the first two and then I'm content. I never thought that once dragons got involved, my enjoyment of the series would go down. But that's what happened with this book, which was so strange. But I don't want to hark on these too much, so we will move on to the next disappointing book, which was The Geographer's Map to Romance. This was disappointing only because I myself am a fantasy cartographer, so geography, cartography, it's all in the same vein. So I had some pretty high expectations going into this one, and I enjoyed India Holton's book about birds and ornithology more than The Geographers. I feel like the magic and the science just got to be too much, where it was confusing for the readers, I feel like, to follow along. And then the romance, which is like the main point of it, took a back seat behind all the explanation of the science and the magic and all of that. I'm like, why am I bored? I'm so bored in this book. And there were cute moments between them, do not get me wrong. However, not enough to satisfy me and to kind of bring me back from the boredom I was feeling for the majority of this book. And then the last book that I am devastated, you guys, devastated that I hated, because I have such a pretty edition of it, A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. I just feel like this book ended up feeling like the most stereotypically written romantasy novel. I literally remember arguing with myself over the fact of, do I want to spend the money to buy this book? Because I haven't read it, but I might not like it, but it's so pretty and I want it. And I went ahead and I bit the bullet and I bought the pretty edition. Only for it to turn around and do me like this. Thank goodness I didn't buy the second one because I almost did. I feel like the characters didn't have anything drawing them together, so the romance felt so forced. And then there were certain things happening and you had such a limited cast of characters that it was so obvious who was doing what and what was going to happen. So the big plot twist ended up being not really that big of a plot twist, and that was the only interesting moment of the entire book. But if you knew what was happening leading up to that point, then there really wasn't any excitement about the plot, and I didn't care about the characters. Like I said, I don't want to hark on these books too much, just though I'm very sad that these books were disappointing to me. The biggest surprise of the year so far has to be Anne of Green Gables. I did not expect to love it, but I just don't think I expected to love it to the level that I love this series. Like, classics are sometimes hit or miss for me, and it's so good, you guys, so good. But I already, you know, talked a bunch about it earlier, so we will move on because I've talked so much about Anne. So, you know, just read Anne, you guys. And then a new to me, or new favorite author, Ella Montgomery. Are you kidding me? I'm really excited to dive into not only the rest of Anne, but some of her other works as well. So read Anne, you guys. Okay, now we're moving on. The next question is a book that made you cry, and I honestly couldn't think of any that particularly made me tear up or cry. Possibly Daisy Jones and the Six, but I really don't think I shed a tear on that one. And I will say, Ship of Magic was one of the most painful reads that I've read so far because these characters were not catching a break under any circumstances. Poor innocent characters, so many bad things just kept happening to them, kept pushing them down, and I knew that they would, you know, grow from it and hopefully get their satisfying revenge or what have you. But man, this book was so painful, and I just know that I'm really gonna be in for a ride with the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings series. I have 2 books for this next one, which is the most beautiful books that you have bought. This one, the Blue Castle in Page Classics edition. I just love this art style, and I will be buying, I think, most of my classics from here because the color, the composition, the art style, it's so, so beautiful. I just love it so much, as well as Are We Surprised? Anne of the Island, which is book 3 in the Anne of Green Gables series. As you can see, there is a reason why I want to read this book in the fall, because how could I not? Some books I need to read by the end of the year. There's actually one main answer, and it covers like an umbrella of many books I need to get to, but I am gonna hold up Rhythm of War because I need to catch up in the Cosmere, you guys. Kate and I got tickets to Dragonsteel Nexus, which is like the big Brandon Sanderson Cosmere event that happens in Utah at the end of the year. So I have until the beginning of December to finish all of the Stormlight Archives. So I have Dawnshard, Rhythm of War, and Wind and Truth. And then I also need to reread Era 2 of Mistborn because I only read the first 3, and I could not tell you a single detail about those books. I read them while traveling internationally for the first time, and I had so much on my mind. I don't know why I decided to read those books at the time. So I am excited to go and basically experience them for the first time, since I have clearly wiped my memory of anything that goes down in Era 2. And then I have all of the other like various Cosmere novels. I think Sunlit Man is one of them. I need to read the novels in Arcanum Unbounded. So there's a lot to do, especially because I have so many high fantasies I'm in the middle of experiencing at the moment. Although Cosmere needs to take priority, so books I need to finish. A lot of 1,000-page novels, evidently. And then the last 2 questions are book channel related, and one of them being your favorite video you've made so far this year. I loved my 24-hour readathon. I did like a timer method in the spring. I had so much fun filming that video, you guys. I had some of the best reading days ever, and it was just 3 days of doing nothing but reading and ignoring all of my responsibilities, which I love any excuse to do. And then some upcoming videos I'm excited about. One, I'm experiencing Summerween for the very first time, and I'm actually going to Katie's, who is basically the queen of Halloween at this point, and she has so many exciting plans for us. And at this point, she's kind of made an itinerary, and she's just telling me what we're gonna do, and I am so here for it, and I am so excited. As well as my Lord of the Rings vlog, which is currently in progress. I'm drawing the Lord of the Rings map and reading Lord of the Rings for the very first time, which should be coming out sooner rather than later, hopefully. It's taken me longer than I thought, but it's totally fine, you guys. So those are some videos that I'm excited, and I hope you guys are excited about as well. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing all my answers to the freakout tag. I would love to hear your answers below as well. I love filming tag videos. It really throws me back to like the old booktube days, and I actually used to run a booktube channel with 2 of my friends back in high school, and we loved doing tags. So it just gives me those feelings, and I love, of course, any excuse to talk about books with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I do hope to see you in my next one. Toodles!